Welcome to Quantum Conversations, QCTV live stream for your higher self connection. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Loren Gailey with this episode of Quantum Conversations, QCTV live stream. My guest today is someone who works with the Diamond Light Codes. Julie Umpleby is here to share on how we align to the new evolutionary impulse. Julie, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation, Lorenz. Lovely to chat with you again and to chat with the audience. It's been quite a while since we connected, so it's just really beautiful to have the opportunity. So much is changing in our world that, I think there's ever increasing and improving understanding of where we're at and more challenges to overcome. So, thank you.
Yes, more and more challenges to overcome. And so this is where our own personal discernment is being honed, as well as our ability to stay centered and in the heart, right? And I want to share that the last time you were on, you shared about the white lions. And I just want to say again that that has been confirmed and corroborated so many times. And it's so incredibly beautiful. So in these times right now, what's new? What have you been up to? How are things?
Okay. Well, I mean, aside from what's going on in the external world, what's really fascinating for me, Loren, which really leads into the conversation at the moment, and where we're going to, is a deeper understanding of where we are at as a collective humanity in respect of an evolution that we are going through. And that is, oh, you're back. Going through a really profound evolution. And I don't think any of us had any idea of what that was going to entail. We've been talking about evolution and the new earth and moving into the new earth for so long, but I don't think any of us had any idea just how it was going to be catalyzed, that we were going to move into it. So we are living through a momentous time in history. So part and parcel of what I've been doing, I mean, the program that I'm actually talking about and that is being promoted today is called Masters of Destiny. It's something that I put together just a year ago. I ran it for the first time a year ago, and it provided such profound understanding of the evolutionary phases and stages of humanity and just what we are going through at the moment and why it is so meaningful and why we're experiencing life the way that we're experiencing it. And it also reinforces the importance of, as you were saying, staying centered and staying in our hearts. Because it is probably the most important imperative at the moment, as everything is actually being released and stirred up from the collective unconscious. That's what's staring us in the face. So we can't really turn our back on it. And it's how strong are we to really look at it all and embrace it all, knowing that it's part of a story, it is part of a drama, it is part of the collective dream that has to play out, and it is going to play out. So that's really what I've been busy with in the last 12 months. And it's also researching more deeply, because of course, where I come from, I'm a scientist. So I love the science. So as far as what is being played out, I love picking holes in the storyline because I look for the science, the real science, not the science that's being dished out through the formal channels. So it's been a really interesting and exciting year, and it is challenging to maintain our space through it all.
Yes. And so when we're talking about this great change that's coming up, that we're in this great evolutionary time, and this ability to stay heart-centered, how are you finding the inspiration? What can you advise for people to do to bring in the inspiration? Here we are, we can see so many, I can personally see a lot of opportunities for growth and change, a lot.
Yes.
And I think we can. But for those who cannot, what would you recommend that people do to really tune into that?
Do you know, I think there's two elements to that, Loren, from my perspective. I have always found that one of the key aspects that enables us to move beyond where we feel trapped is in understanding the what's, highs, and why, the what, how, and why things are happening the way that they are happening, which is where the framework for these cycles of evolution actually comes into play. So if we can understand that this is why it's happening, then we can begin to actually look beyond that and look through it for the opportunities that are there. As you say, you're seeing incredible opportunities, and there are amazing opportunities. Absolutely. And that's what inspires me. And it's keeping the balance between digging into the unconscious, because of course, with the diamond light work, as is mentioned before, is the diamond light shines its light on everything. And the diamond light, as I've said to my community, it's kind of like, we've done a lot of work over the last decade in respect of bringing things up from the unconscious. You know, so that's part and parcel of what the function of the diamond light is. So long before lots of people started talking about it, it's like we were doing the work of digging in and bringing it all up. So it's kind of, okay, well, we've created this because we are actually moving through it, and we need to hold that diamond light in terms of shining the light through onto those particular areas that we can dream into being, that we can move into, that we can be inspired by, you know, sort of new technologies, new ideas, and begin to truly, it's our job to create the new earth. You know, and right now is the opportunity to do that. Breakaway societies, you know, sort of moving away from the confines of what is actually being imposed, to rediscover our sovereignty. And that for me has been key this year, is the rediscovering of our sovereign self and operating from that perspective all the time. And it really got to the point where, for me this year, and I know for quite a few other people as well, and a lot of people in my community, it became a truly deep feeling of authentication, and that it didn't matter anymore what people thought about what I was saying. And I don't know if you found
Yeah.
that. And when we get to that point, there is an awesome, I know you guys would say it's awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, there's an
Awesome.
awesome sense of freedom that comes along with that. And when we have that freedom, when we truly experiencing it from deep within our being, it gives us the capacity to be able to see, envision, and create from a different place. So there's the seeing what is breaking down and what is being elevated without getting caught in the drama, and continuing to
Taking
expose and
sides.
punch holes in what is actually being presented, while holding the space for the new. So it's a constant balancing act.
Are you saying not to poke holes?
Oh no, I am saying to poke holes.
To speak where you feel. We're
Yes.
certainly seeing that. We're certainly seeing the voice, and we're
Yeah.
certainly seeing that program of caring what other people think, right?
Yes.
Maybe there's some light workers that are kind of shy to
Yes.
go out there and speak that mind, but it seems like that is being strengthened.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. And that's part of the strengthening evolutionary wave. It's part of the strengthening of all that is being held, suppressed, and in the darkness actually being elevated, and coming into view for everybody to see, so that those who are technically still asleep will be able to see what has always been there, but they have just been turning their back on, because it's going to be so obvious that they're not going to be able to miss it. But the trick is, you know, as I was saying just now, is that you can poke holes in it, but don't get caught in the drama and the emotionality of what it is, because that's the hazard. That's the fine line that we walk in the middle, is knowing what that is, continuing to do that while actually holding the vision for the outcome and the new earth that we actually want. So while it may appear sometimes to be pretty dark, sometimes despairing for a lot of people, when we act from that centered place, there is a kindness in the exposure of the truth. It's like ripping the band-aid off, as somebody used the analogy. Do you pick at it, or do you actually just take it and peel it off the wound very slowly? Or do you rip it off because it might be painful in the short term to be exposed to all of this, you know? But it's going to heal. Things are actually going to heal and move forward much more quickly if it's a quick yanking off of the band-aid, because that's what we've been doing as a civilization, is putting band-aids on everything and pretending that everything was actually okay externally. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And so when we're talking about awakening and waking up, can you detail that? It's really about uh, us remembering who we truly are, right? And so if we're to look at the external world and
Yeah.
recognize that we're all one, that we're all here, that we're all here in this collective, but yet we can be separate of the collective, right? We can rise above the collective. We can all hold our vision on what we all wish to see. And I think in this polarity that we've got going on, where you've got family members and spouses and couples and best friends that may not even agree. I was on a webinar with 3 people the other day, and not one of us could agree on one thing. And that's okay,
Yes.
because guess what? We can all agree on what we want.
Yes.
And so I think that's key. How do we bridge? How do we get to truly what we all want while we're still here? Again, it's rising above pointing and blaming. But what would you
Yeah.
say about this waking up aspect?
Oh my goodness. Do you know, I've never seen, and I said this at the beginning of the year, that this waking up that was happening was a tsunami. That we are actually, there's a tsunami building in respect of people actually waking up. And as far as I'm concerned, and I know it's very, very difficult with a lot of families, I also have family members who think that I am completely nuts. I have friends who actually believe that, you know, I'm just a conspiracy theorist, when a lot of the stuff that's actually coming to light is fact and cannot be disputed. But it's like I can't go there. So I have lots of people, and I see it around as well, who cannot yet see what is actually happening. And we have to be able to allow them to be where they are. If we think about it, our own awakening process was not the easiest when we actually woke up. It was a long drawn out process. And we went through, sometimes for many of us, the pain of actually addressing and letting go of a lot of our patterns and shadows as we became aware of them, which is part of the waking up process. So it's actually having the compassion to be able to see those individuals who haven't quite woken up yet, knowing that it's going to happen, and just holding the space for them to be there. And also exercising a great deal of discernment to know when it is right to speak, when it is right to sort of engage or share some of the information that you have, and when it's best to keep quiet. And I've actually found that when I've been out and about, even with complete strangers, there are times when I have spoken up in the most unreal of circumstances that I would never have imagined, you know, in the stores and what have you. And there've been other times when I've just went, no, it's just not right at the moment. So there's a deep level of discernment within us that lets us know when it's right or it's not. And a friend of mine has a beautiful analogy, and I know that you will get this. It's sort of like, let's just imagine, because we're on spaceship Earth. So let's just imagine that we're actually on a spaceship going to Mars, and it's a really, really long journey. And in order to make that journey, everybody has to go into cryogenic stasis. But what happens is, the closer you get to your destination, you will find that there's a first tranche of people that actually wake up because they need to prepare the ship for the rest of the individuals opening up. So you've got layers and cycles of crew that are awakening. So you'll get the really essential ones opening up first, who have certain roles that they need to play in order to prepare for the next wave that's actually waking up to be able to take up their roles to steer the ship to where it needs to go. And then you've got everybody else who's maybe a passenger on the ship. sort of in stasis, and it needs to be ready for when they wake up so that their needs are actually met at the time. And on spaceship Earth, that's basically what is happening. We've had waves of awakening going back, sort of 20, 30 years, that started off with a small wave, those that actually initiated the process. And then we've had another wave that actually started building through the late 90s into the 2000s. And then it started accelerating as more people started waking up from sort of 2010, 2012, thereabouts onwards. And now we've got another whole wave that is actually getting ready. They're getting ready to wake up. So we are holding the space and actually preparing it for them. And to me, I have to thank her. Her name is Rachel. She's a part of the diamond community. That was her analogy. And it's just such a beautiful analogy that to me makes so much sense whenever I'm explaining that to people, because that's where we're at. They will, maybe some people will not wake up from the journey. There may be a few that won't, but there's a massive tsunami, a massive wave of awakening that's actually happening now, because we're getting close to a really tremendous evolutionary shift, an alchemical shift. So that's the way that I actually I love to view it. So everybody has their role. No role is more or less important than anybody else's. Whether you woke up 20 years ago, whether you woke up 10 years ago, whether you woke up this year, because look at how many have actually woken up to some of the truths since the beginning of this year, 2020. You know, incredible.
Yes.
Just an incredible number.
Incredible year, an incredible year of acceleration. And we like to say the cat is out of the proverbial bag, meaning that we cannot go backwards.
No.
And so, heart opening, that's the key here. Ascension is becoming aware of the great love that we are. And it's through meditation and stillness that we find this. I love how the apps for the phone for meditations are like so popular now. So we're seeing that. That's beautiful. When
Yeah.
we're talking about sovereignty, can you explain a little bit more about what that means for each of us? Because we're looking at a world, when you were talking about science too, we can't even get scientists to agree. And so this is where our inner knowingness,
Yeah.
our higher self connection actually will give us the answers. Can you talk a little bit about that connection, the higher self connection, and sovereignty, moving in the world in
Yeah.
sovereignty?
From my perspective, when we talk about sovereignty, we're really talking about embodiment. And it's the embodiment of the totality and the wholeness of the essence that we are. And that ultimate essence, the truth of it is that we are love. And I don't think we've even begun to understand the extent and the true meaning of what that love actually is, because so often we relate to that term in respect of our human understanding of emotional content, as opposed to the depth of it, the true divine love and the essence, the actual essence of who we are. So sovereignty to me is the understanding that we are part and parcel, and we are interconnected with the entire collective. However, we do have boundaries of our own that actually would prevent others from imposing their will onto our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual being. So it's the restoration of the integrity of that for us as individuals, which in turn then nurtures the whole. So it's really, really important, as far as I'm concerned, that essence of sovereignty, which is to to heal any patterns or connections, to actually, I don't know if resist is really the right word, but to not allow the infiltration of external agencies of any kind into our own personal space, energetic and physical. Does that make sense? Because when we do, that is then the ultimate love and honoring of ourselves. And once we hold that, it actually becomes something that we can give back. And caring out in the world, and it's things like kindness. We tend to think that kindness is an expression of the heart and that kindness is always soft and gentle. Well, sometimes kindness is actually expressing the truth of a matter that may be perceived by somebody else as being unkind because of their emotional patterns and because they are not used to dealing with that raw authenticity and that raw sovereign essence that is truth. And because love is truth, truth is love, and there is an absolute truth that goes beyond all of the games that are actually being played out. Does that make sense? So sometimes it can actually be, it's not always the fluffy softness that we perceive. It can require us to actually exercise an element of strength and firmness within our own being. And to exercise those boundaries, which is the sovereignty, because that is then what we give others permission to do.
Yes, thank you for explaining that. What's very interesting too is, kindness. You were saying that kindness sometimes is saying things that maybe needs to shift someone's perspective, but also it's a reprogramming. We said earlier, like we've gotten rid of the program caring what other people think.
Yeah.
One, because people are wearing face masks now, so you can't see people in public. So why should you care what people think, right? Other people are out of our auric fields.
Yes.
That's allowing us to have more of that sovereignty of our own energy.
Yes.
So we're becoming more sensitive to others' energy.
Yes.
So it's interesting because I see it as a reflection of the oneness that we're coming to, where we're seeing that we are all related, right? And so neutrality is key, right? Neutrality is really key.
Beautiful
You want to
word.
speak a little bit about that?
Well, to me, that's almost part of the what I was actually explaining earlier, and about keeping the centered, balanced perspective, and not getting caught up in the emotional drama. It's a kind of detachment. Excuse me, neutrality and detachment from the drama, as well as from the over expectations of what and how we anticipate the new earth and our lives to actually look like or to manifest. So it is the neutrality is the capacity to be able to stay fully centered in the now and fully centered and engaged with whatever we're engaged in at that particular moment in time, and to be able to connect beyond the physical to the original source of that essence, because that is when we get to really experience the love and the divine perfection in all that is unfolding as part and parcel of a greater pattern of manifestation. Because there are, that's the whole thing about the Masters of Destiny program, that I worked with once last year, and I've updated it now for 2020 because it actually needed it.
And that's
Is that
starting soon, actually.
yes,
Dates are on this webpage. Just check that out. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Okay.
There are huge cycles and patterns that define and provide holographic information, like codes, whatever you want to call it. It actually provides information for the growth and evolution of humanity, and it was always going to happen and to flow in perfect time, because there is a cosmic timing. We can't dictate or determine that. We can determine how we ride those waves, but we can't dictate or determine that cosmic timing. Now is the cosmic time that is actually moving us forward in really powerful ways, and it's carrying us on that wave. And that's sort of confirmed as well from many different sources.
Yeah, let's talk about this. You call this, or you refer to these as cycles of evolution defined by holographic waves.
Yes.
So the holographic wave is like the sign of the times, or
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that. Can you explain
Well,
more
we
what
know.
holographic waves are?
Yeah. So the entire um it's not a thesis. The entire information construct that is based around this is derived from, believe it or not, the ancient Maya and their calendrical systems that deviate from what became very well known through the whole 2012 marketing, whatever it is. Because I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Johann Carl Kalaman.
Yes, yes.
Yes, the quantum waves of evolution.
Yeah.
When one actually looks at that work, and this is what fascinated me so much, and that's a lot of what I've done in terms of the supporting research and additional research, is that the Maya described through their calendrical systems a series of 9 waves, each one of which gives rise to a particular stage in the evolution of all life, not just humanity, but all of life. So each one brings with it a certain type or quality of information that is perfect for that particular time. So those calendrical systems that the Maya actually devised were genius. The ones that have been decoded by Carl Johann Kalaman that he puts forward in his book, The 9 Waves, Quantum Waves of Evolution, tie in so beautifully with the prior research that I had done through the diamond work and what I was actually led to the natural cycles that have been observed through the archaeological records, which is fascinating for me. So it's kind of like you can take that work that he did, and now I can overlay this other work with the cycles of evolution, and it actually makes a huge amount of sense, massive correlations. So we know that a hologram, for instance, a hologram is something that contains the whole. The way that we actually perceive the hologram, so what's in the holographic wave, everybody can access the same information, but the way in which they access that information, because it's the same all the way through the wave, if you like, is dependent upon their own makeup, their own frequency, their own conditioning, their own perceptions and programs. So what they extract from the holographic wave, which is uniform in terms of information, is highly dependent upon the individual. And each wave carries a fragment of the picture of the totality of the whole, which is the creative essence, the creative cosmos, the creator, however you actually want to put it. And each, do you know what? I've actually got some diagrams, if it's actually possible to do a bit of a screen share, because it might just make more sense if people could see it.
Perfect.
What do you think?
Yes.
And it's actually taken from the program. Let me just get this in.
Yes. All
If
right.
that's okay.
So these waves contain
Let's just
information,
find.
information that we are ready for.
And now we're ready for it. Yeah.
Now we're ready for it. We're in the 9th wave.
Yeah. I
Yes.
am. Let me just find that's
All right. Well,
the.
you're looking that up. I want to let everyone know about your course. We're going to talk about your course. It's a 6-part course, a webinar course that's coming up where you're going to go into these different
There we
aspects.
go.
Yeah. And so when you're ready, you can share
Yeah.
your screen there.
Oh, I don't know why. Oh, there it is. There's the Myonics calendar. There it is.
And you know, when you go to the Mayan temples, there's images of them as an astronaut. They were wearing space gear. Very fascinating. All right,
Yeah.
we see your screen. Beautiful.
So when we actually look, let's just have a look at the kind of information that fuels our evolution through various stages of our journey on this spaceship Earth, if you want. So the 9 waves are defined, and this is just scratching the surface because the program goes into a great deal of depth in terms of understanding these particular waves. But what you actually have, if you look here, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor on the screen. At the
158,000 years, yes.
Yeah, at the 4th wave, because the 4th wave is really where we get the development of human beings, sort of very primal human beings. But the 5th wave is where it gets really, really interesting. Now, just to actually show you, this column here on the right-hand side tells you when the wave was activated according to the decryption of the Mayan systems. Now, Carl Johann Kalaman actually did deal with a number of Mayan elders who supported him in the decoding of this and then the mapping of these particular time cycles, which is absolutely fascinating. And each wave of evolution right from the beginning actually has a frequency which is 20 times higher than the preceding wave. So anything that increases in frequency carries more information. So each of the waves that actually comes in actually has more information that serves the development of more complex life manifestations, complex life forms. So I think that's sort of quite straightforward. So what we find here with the 5th wave, this where we see the emergence of culture in human beings is recorded through archaeological finds in caves, through the kind of cave drawings. There's lots of people who've actually done historical work on that, and that's 103,000 years ago. And archaeologists have actually discovered some of these confirmations, if you like. They don't know about the 9 waves, but they've dated some of the cave paintings and things that they found, indicating a shift in culture from around 80,000 years ago. So it's within this window. And it takes a while for when a wave actually becomes active for enough of the people to tune into the information to be able to manifest it through the physical form, because it's subtle energy that we're talking about. So from about 80, and there might even be some more historical stuff that actually hasn't even been dated yet, but we know 80,000 years ago. And in terms of that, the Khoisan people in Africa, their DNA has been shown to be the oldest DNA on the planet. They are the oldest species of humans still alive on the planet as an indigenous people.
Wow.
And it's 80,000. Yeah, so it's really quite fascinating. They have held the knowledge of the evolution of humanity through their being, through their DNA. So they're holding it in place for us for all of these years. Now, here what we've got is a physical duration of the wave. Now, just to show you on this slide, if I can, if you can imagine that you've got a wave or a sine wave, this is how the information actually presents itself. You've got a peak here and you've got a trough here. So between that peak and this peak is an entire cycle. So one peak here would be half the cycle. This downward peak would be the other half of the cycle. Are you with me? And together they make up an entire frequency. So where this is talking about here, the duration of the cycle, they're talking about one aspect of the sine wave. So one aspect of this wave, and you can see that change comes very, very slowly in accordance with this wave. And also, I must just say, it's not sequential. All of these waves are now active, and they are all active at the same time. So where we are at is highly dependent on what we are resonating with. which wave. So the hologram and the information we are accessing depends on our frequency, how much clearing out we've done, so that we can actually harness the positive attributes of each one of those waves. Otherwise, we get stuck in the patterning if we're actually operating at a low resonance, if that makes sense. So you can see here the frequency of that wave. It's a very, very long wavelength. So it would actually take many, many years for anything to change, because based on this system, you would find that in the upward movement of the cycle is when there is forward motion and forward movement and expansion and growth. So you actually have a lot of evolutionary growth, new ideas and creativity taking place. In the downward portion of any one of these cycles is actually when you have decline and breakdown. Okay, so that you can actually create the way for something new to emerge. So you've got these constant cycles of growth and expansion and constriction and dying down to create the space for something new. So if we go back and have a look at this, the reason why, and this is why I say aligning with the evolution, the new evolutionary impulse, and it's really, really important, is we've gone through a sequence, and since 1999, we saw the 8th wave activated, which has a wavelength of just 1 year. Now, if we think back to 1999, if any of you think back, any of you that are actually on the call, that actually have awoken over a period of time, if you take 97 and 98, 99, those years, there was a massive awakening process that actually was happening on the planet. I know that was my particular trigger point, and many people I've spoken to, it was a trigger point at that time with the activation of this particular wave. And that wave, very interestingly, activated the right brain, the connection with the heart, the connection with the divine feminine. So that's what we're seeing, the resurgence and the reawakening of the goddess. That's where, so you see from that point onwards, so many of the goddess alignment courses, all of the stuff that was coming through, people aligning with the divine feminine in all of the multitude of ways, and actually opening up to connect with the realms beyond through the right brain and reconnecting with their heart. So that was triggered through the 8th wave. But the 8th wave isn't the end of the story. What is actually being triggered now since 2011, which has a very short duration or frequency of just 8 days. So we are cycling through stuff really, really quickly at the moment, was the 9th wave. And the 9th wave is the final wave in the Mayan system, which is the ultimate wave of unification, of balance, of restoration, of wholeness, of all of those things that we attributed to 2012, and that these are the kind of aspects that we want to see embodied and embedded for the new earth. But that wave is only slowly beginning to gain traction, because what we're doing is we're also reactivating the left brain and bringing both brain hemispheres back into balance. So where the 8th wave, which precipitated massive opening, was mainly right brain, the 9th wave brings it all back into balance and brings us all back to the center. And it brings me back to what I was saying earlier, where we've got this punching holes in the official story because we start accessing the facts and don't get emotionally involved. So we remain detached, and then understanding the potential and possibilities that are limitless in respect of what we have the capacity to create through the unification. So this evolutionary impulse is the 9th wave, and that is building and has been building in intensity since 2011. So you've
And
got,
so when that shows 18 days as a duration for the
yeah,
9th wave, does
yeah,
that mean every 18 days that cycle repeats?
yes. Well, what it does is it has 18 days of an upward movement or a forward movement, and then it has 18 days when we
Ah,
actually go through a down part of the cycle. And
okay.
with the ninth wave, it's more about healing. But as we do that, we also contribute to the falling down and the breaking down of the rigidity and the barriers that have actually existed around these earlier waves that have actually been so entrenched in people's minds and conditioning, social conditioning. Because this particular wave, say for instance, the sixth wave, has a wavelength of 394 years. So again, it takes
Mhm,
quite a while for that to
mm.
come back up into its positive expression. And that at the moment is in a nighttime. So whenever this hits the downward part of the cycle, because it represents higher civilizations and advancement of civilizations, we're seeing the decline of a civilization that we have gotten used to. Okay, so we're seeing the decline, and this wave, interestingly enough, follows the patterning of the Roman civilizations. It follows the patterning of the Greek civilizations. The rise and fall throughout history of empires and civilizations actually follows the patterning and the timing very closely of the sixth wave. So that's where we're at the moment. But previously, when civilizations fell, the more advanced waves were not necessarily there to help them to pick it up. So any new civilizations that were created at that point were created only from the perspective of the information that was available within that frequency of the wave. Okay. So they could kind of like recreate more of the same. And that's why we see almost, if we look back at the Romans, at the British Empire and all of those, it was just more of the same. And there was a lot of oppression of the people and a lot of slavery and a lot of taking from the people over the many years that these civilizations existed. Where we have the beautiful benefit now, which is the evolutionary impulse, is we have this breaking down because it's in that part of the cycle, but we have the benefit of advanced information, evolutionary information that can carry us forward to create something entirely new, never seen before. So that is what you were speaking about earlier in respect of all of the potential, the unlimited potential that actually exists. So we have the unlimited potential, the unlimited access to the cosmic fields through the right brain, plus the ninth wave frequencies, which enable us to moderate all of those wonderful limitless ideas with the concepts of unification, of wholeness, of balance, and to bring it all back into being. So that perhaps, I hope that gives like a little bit of a framework in respect of understanding the waves and why it's fascinated me so much about the evolution, because you might just say, well, that's just a theory, it's somebody's theory. But I just want to pull this up for a moment, because this was something that I'd researched. This is one of the layers that I say goes on top of that information, which virtually validates it, is that the archaeologists have found evolutionary cycles that basically align with those cycles of the waves in terms of spontaneous arising of evolutionary development and of new life forms. And this is fascinating because it's, in scientific terms, they call it punctuated equilibrium. Which means things seem to go along for a period of time and they're all fine with just little incremental changes. And then all of a sudden, species disappear in geologic terms. So you can actually see on this graph here, it's a 62 million year cycle. Things just disappear and then new life suddenly emerges sort of relatively quickly. And then it disappears again. And then there's new life that emerges, and then something disappears and new life emerges. There's no gradual emergence of that new life. It's very sudden, and there are gaps in the evolutionary record because they can't find life forms that represent the transition. There is also within that a 26 million year cycle, and within that of evolution, of rise and fall. So there are distinct cycles. There's also the 26,000 year cycle that has actually been monitored. We know that as the precession of the equinoxes. It is also a life cycle of evolution and new life forms. And we know that we're actually at the point in the cycle at the moment where we are entering into a new era and a new phase of the 26,000 year cycle. You call it the age of Aquarius, whatever you like. There is a movement, there is a transition point. There is also a 10,000 year evolutionary cycle, and they are all coalescing at this moment in time when we also have the gift of the ninth wave. So it is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's
To
huge.
say the least, yes.
It is to me, and that's where to sort of put it into a framework and understanding, it just says, you know what, that's why we are experiencing personally so many challenges with
So
this.
many. Yes. Yes.
Because it
Okay.
is by our
Yeah.
biology is changing. Biologically, we're living through an evolutionary leap in humanity's history.
Yes. Well, this is exciting and it's amazing. And it really puts a nice perspective on this great change. So, for those who are not so comfortable with change, hold on to your hats because we really must get comfortable with change. And so, getting comfortable with change again leads us inside to know what we know inside ourselves. And so that's a journey that each of us take. And as we do that and we clear out, like you said, no matter where we are, we're getting to a point of
Yes.
purification, and realignment to the source and the love that we are. And so it's really a collapsing of, like you said, it's the destroying of those lower systems, but it really is a collapsing of all of the things that we thought were true.
Yes.
And so when you hold your vision of New Earth, what do you see New Earth as?
That's difficult because I think the definitions are unfolding all of the time. You know, so many, and I've also been through this. You kind of look at New Earth as an environment where we actually have a total honoring of each other and of the environment and going back to nature. But this doesn't mean going back and living in a mud hut and growing your own vegetables. To some extent, it may actually require us to do that because there needs to be a shift in the industrial farming, the corporatization of our food. So
Isn't it interesting? Again, without getting into too much of like what's going on, when we look at the coronavirus, no matter, we're not going to go into how it happened, who done it, or whatever,
yeah.
but we can see from a higher perspective how it is really changing things, how it is making people care for their health in their own way, in a new way, balancing everything. For example, one of the things up for change is education. As we know, kids going
Huge.
back to college, and kids, including my son, is deciding whether or not he wants to be in something like that. And so this is, I feel like crying because it's so deep, the change
Yes.
that each of us are making
Yes.
in our own lives.
Yes.
We are cleaning up our house. We are fixing things. We're purging things. We're emptying out junk drawers, things like this. We're finding new balance.
Yes.
Most of all, it is a new foundation of love, right?
Yeah.
And so that means a lot of the old systems have to give. And so when I said earlier, the cat's out of the bag, meaning the change that is underway, no one's going to come along and change things. We can't wait for elected officials to come along and change things. We're actually starting to see things happening on local levels, like we've never seen before. People are
It's
paying
key.
attention to who is elected to their school boards.
Yes,
We never cared about that in the past.
before.
And this is the change.
Yes.
And so, how does one really decide what to, okay, you can call it name your battles. That's not a 5D word. Pick your voice assertions, right? Pick your truth. I don't
Yeah.
say pick your truth, but speak your truth where you see fit.
Yes.
And isn't that interesting, Julie?
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, it's just amazing.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there, Lorraine, and I do think it's important because so often we get hung up and stuck on the big picture of what we think New Earth is going to look like or what it's going to be. You know, we know that we want it to be a place of harmony, etc., but it's starting with us, and so it has to start local. And those small decisions and where we choose to put our energy and where we choose to stand up within our sovereign self. So that's maybe another way of saying it, is to sort of stand in our sovereign space and not compromise on what we know, deep inside,
Yes.
and in
Yeah.
respect of our values and the values that we want to inculcate in our children, because we do this, and the work that we're doing is not necessary, it's not necessarily for us, it's for our children and our children's children, and for the earth that they are going to inherit.
Yeah.
So it's to start doing local things within the community. Who are the people that actually perhaps need a bit more assistance? How can we start? You know, we see community projects being initiated in beautiful ways, and I love it. And that is like planting food trees or fruit trees in a public space so that nobody needs to go hungry. Children do not need to go hungry. Food forests. I was reading an article the other
I
day, so I'm
love
looking
that.
at these things. Yeah,
Food forests.
yeah,
That is truly abundance when you can look at a tree
yes,
full of oranges.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you know, and then there was a wonderful Australian man that I'm investigating the work that he did at the moment. He spent, and I can't remember his name, somebody Bruce or Bruce somebody, which sounds like a bit of a joke, but it's actually not. His name was Bruce because, you know, hey, Bruce is the Australian. It's the same as Sheila, you know. But he'd spent 30 years of his life cataloging edible plants in every country of the world so
Wow.
that individuals could, and those are wild plants as well that people perhaps do not know about, so that individuals could plant those particular indigenous crops, not even as a crop, just as a small patch, and that no child in that country need go hungry because the food is there, and to teach children what to look for, what is edible, how it's edible, how to cook it, you know, that kind of stuff, and to teach people how to do that. Most of us have lost touch with that. And
Yeah.
that I think is that's one thing I'm looking at the moment. That is such a beautiful initiative that will feed into New Earth, you know. And we already
Yeah.
know sort of architectural buildings that will work in harmony with the earth. So we move away from the concrete boxes. It doesn't mean that we need to get rid of technology. We just need and want safe technology that's going to complement what we do and
Yes.
complement human health.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And um, just the basic principles of caring about others. As we're talking unification, we've mentioned it
Yes.
before. December 21st of 2020, the planet
Yes.
herself will be fully anchored in unity consciousness. And so this
The
year,
huge thing.
wow, I mean, look at it. Look at all the opportunities for people to become aware that we are all here on this
Yes.
planet together.
Yes.
And we better get along and create things. And this is what we
And we
said.
can.
Okay, so instead of those big old concrete buildings, so again, it comes back to the coronavirus and opportunities. When you have a workforce that is literally changing, the corporate world is changing to a more balanced place most people who are working from home are actually enjoying that balance.
Yes.
Although parents with small children in school, that's a new kind of balance that's required, but one that has us seeing mothers and teenage daughters walking down the street holding hands, or kids saying, I love you. You know, I hear this in my neighborhood. I hear words like that. And so when we listen for New Earth, we can see it.
Yes.
And so when we're compassionate for others and we care about others, the ideas that come out, for example, if half the workforce are not going to go back into the buildings, those buildings can either be demolished and more open space created, more parks created, or how about some of those buildings being used to educate and education centers for the homeless, education and living centers for people experiencing homelessness. I mean, that goes into a deeper conversation about some
Yes.
people will never be able to blah, blah, but I don't care about that because
No.
the thing is, we're talking about how this is like when we talk about love, which we feel inside ourselves so deeply, we know what the good ideas are, right?
Yeah.
We know what it means to help other people and to
Yeah.
create a world with other people. So that is New Earth. And some have said that by 2030, we're going to be fully there. Some have
Yeah.
said it should have been here in 2018. And so here we are in 2020 with things accelerating, and we always encourage people to get very creative with New Earth ideas.
Yes.
And Julie, that's where your course comes in, because the work that you do with everyone is really helping them tune in to this inner wisdom so deeply that once
Very
this
deeply.
is achieved, the higher self connection inspires us in so many new ways. So we're almost there at this incredible tipping point. It's
Yes.
beautiful.
It,
So
it
share
is.
what.
It's hugely exciting, and it's like perfect timing. And I think that is the inspiration. It's just, it's is knowing that
Almost.
from a bigger picture perspective. It's not fluffy woo woo. It's actually these are cycles and grand cycles that are giving us this window of opportunity. And if there's something that I can also just add in, because it's become really fascinating to me, I've added it into the program, is taking a different look at viruses, because we have been conditioned to view viruses as pathogens. Okay, they're dangerous. You get ill when you get the flu, you get ill when you get the cold, or whatever it is. We live in a microbiome of bacteria and viruses. We have trillions of viruses and bacteria that actually live with us all the time. There has been in recent years scientific new sort of research done, which is showing that there is a correlation between viruses and their activity and human evolution. So they take it right back to the earliest of times. And viruses, they're part of the wave system. They were part of the first wave. So we can almost look at this virus in a very different way,
Mm-hmm.
as helping to facilitate, biologically and otherwise, awareness and the next step of our evolution into the earth that we want. So it's a beautiful way of looking at it. So I go into some of the science in the course as well.
Yeah. All right. So on 4/4 earlier this year, when we did that giant global meditation with so many light workers, I saw in the meditation great beings of light putting crowns on our heads. And I heard, okay, I have to be careful. I heard the coronavirus is the unity code. And
Yeah.
so I can see how that is. And so it's gotten political, it's gotten all kinds of
Yes.
whatever it is, but
Yes.
whatever it is, it's made people stand up more and speak their voice, whatever
Yes.
voice that is. And I think that it's bringing to light a clearing. There's a deep clearing going on here in the United States as we really look at things coming out in the collective, but also within ourselves,
Yes.
right?
It always starts here, and it's because of the work that we've been doing that we're seeing it showing up. It's showing up because it's dismantling. It's showing up out there because it's dismantling. Previously, we thought it was just little old us doing our little bit of work, and almost feeling like that we were being seriously challenged or struggling or whatever it is. So many people have been doing that purification and that cleansing. That's why it's showing up out there. So it's almost like changing the way that we see that. And that's because of the work that we are doing and have been doing. And that's just the beauty. Then it's inspirational. Then you kind of go, we'll keep on keeping on, through this
Yeah.
chaos.
Okay.
I know.
And what I've heard too, someone put this beautifully, and it helps put a big perspective on it. When you see that outer world, and the Buddhists have is it Tonglen, this meditation process where you breathe in someone's suffering.
Yes,
And you
I've
breathe
done
out
that.
love. Yeah.
Amazing.
Tonlin. And that is really what we're doing for the collective
Yes.
right now. When
Yes.
we see something out there,
Yeah.
not to take sides, but to
No.
just breathe it in. And like Tai Chi.
Yes. That's exactly and use your breath.
Yes,
And
use
as
the breath.
Laurie Ladd says, which is just beautiful, we're alchemizing it.
We're
So
alchemists.
we're alchemists. And
Right
that's
here,
what
right now.
the waves are. They're alchemy because they trigger that alchemization process. And it's speeding up. You saw with the waves, sort of how each one's 20 times like faster than the one before. So you
And
kind of get a perspective of how quickly things are happening.
yes, what I love about that from that chart
Mm.
is that you've shown the one wave. So the
Yeah.
one wave that's very long, this is
Yes.
like frequency, like a note, a
Yes.
low note. Mm. And then the harmonic of that note, we just learned in the sound healing conference,
Yes.
is it cuts in half. And so what was 1000 frequency, or excuse me, what was 100 is now cut in half. And so you've got 100 and 100 or 200 and 200.
Yes.
And that actually increases the frequency and all the information in that frequency. Like you said, there's more.
Yes.
This is really fractals. It's a fractal in a way, right? It's a little bit of
Yes.
so it's a more intense fractal. But when you ponder that, it's source light. It's
Yes.
more source light coming in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's been fascinating for me too. And I'm also going to build it into the course because I discovered into the new version of it. I discovered just this week that there is a frequency 111 hertz that is very, very significant. And 111 is the number of the diamond. It's the gematria and the number that's associated with diamond consciousness, which is where you get 111s and 1111.
Okay.
It's all diamond purification of consciousness.
Yes, an ascension of consciousness in
Mm-hmm.
that purification.
Yes.
The 11s represent pillars. That's how I've seen it. And
Yes.
so that's fascinating.
Yes.
All right, so your course, you
Yes.
have got a great course for everyone. Explain what goes on here. This is a 6-part masterclass intensive
Yes. Yeah.
for these
Yeah.
new frequency waves. Share with
Yes.
us what's going on in this course.
So what we do, what I do in this particular course is we also going to put 2020 into context and all of the events of this year through the various waves, because it becomes very, very easy to actually understand what is happening, why it's happening when one sees it from the higher perspective of the totality of all of these waves of evolution. So we look at all 9 waves because all of them are still active through our bodies, from the first wave, which represents the viruses and the evolution, right up to the 9th wave, which is where we're at the moment. So how each one of those waves influences our lives, our personal lives, and how the activities of those waves also influences what other people are perceiving or doing. Because if somebody is stuck at the 6th wave level, they're not going to be able to break free to the ninth wave immediately. It's almost like there is a progression that they need to go through. So through the sequence, which takes us deep down into each one of these waves, we also work on clearing within ourselves any of the residual patterns that belong to the information, or the adverse imprinting of the information of all of the earlier waves, so that we literally clear the way to create a pillar from the ninth wave all the way down to the first, and we become, literally, it's the transparency and the unification. So the program as a masterclass gives you both the information, an understanding, and a framework. So it is content rich and it's very intense. A lot of the science. So it's not only the waves, it's all of the other layers that I've actually built on top of it that actually match the information and correlate with it, plus work and exercises that we can do to clear the way so that we become that pillar of light from the ninth right down to the first wave. So it is going to amplify and help to establish the resonance of the ninth wave. So that the more we can do that, the more other people have access to the information of the ninth wave. It's that, it's like that 100th monkey thing. That's literally what we're putting into the collective. So we work with that from multiple different angles and perspectives, also bringing in the diamond consciousness and an in-depth understanding of the diamond consciousness, where that started and how that fits into the whole ninth wave philosophy, because it's a perfect correlation. In fact, the Khoisan people in Africa who've held the fifth wave and what have you stable right through to the ninth wave, they actually anchor and hold the diamond codes. And they've actually been said, I know one of the Sean Caulfield in Cape Town actually works with the Khoisan, and he actually does ceremonies with them to explore and anchor and awaken the diamond consciousness within the earth. So they are releasing the codes that they have held for 80,000 years in their DNA into the collective, also for us to access and clear the way through. There's so much around it. So it really is, sort of an in-depth masterclass. I mean, we've just been chatting for, sort of over an hour, and that's just on one tiny little aspect of what the waves actually are. So I'm so looking forward to running it again with the updated perspective this year, because I've only run it twice last year. And this is now an updated version. So I'm very excited about doing that. Thank you, Lauren.
Oh my goodness, if you're ready to master your destiny in 2020, check out this course with Julie. So Julie, these courses are live webinars. Of course, they're
Yes.
recorded.
Yes.
For those to do the home study version.
Yes.
We find that the energy from those recordings are still there. And if people join live, that's great because they can interact.
Yeah.
But those who listen to the recordings still are in that group energy. Always. And can still witness changes in their life also by listening to how other students are receiving and responding and reacting to that information and transforming from that information. So that is beautiful. So are these about 90 minutes each and then Q&A at the end?
Yeah, because the whole thing, each session runs for around 2 hours. And there is then work that you have to practice to do on your own in the week between the next session of the course. So it's very in depth and very intensive. And I must be honest and say, I don't know if I'm going to be running it again. As a friend of mine says, and it was just so interesting because I never realized this about myself. I tend to run workshops like 2 or 3 times at the most, and then I want to do something new, and then I'm on to developing something else. And as she said to me, do you know, when you have futurists in your archetypal team, which I do, the futurist is always looking. By the time you've done it 3 times, it's like stale stuff now. So I don't want to do it anymore because I get bored actually repeating the information, even though it's new for somebody else. I'm actually bored, running it again. I thought, gee, that's really just helped me to also understand myself, that I'm always looking and working on the next step and something new, which is why I'm really excited about doing this again now, because it's pulled in all of the new information that I've learned this year and that we're faced with in 2020. So yeah, I probably won't run it again. That's
Yeah, that's the beauty of recording it and
yeah.
creating it for people like
So
that. So, all right, the dates for this are on this webpage. So you can join now. And if you happen to miss one, that's okay. These are all recorded.
yeah.
And we encourage you guys to sign up. I'm really excited for you all to dive so deeply in this topic with Julie. Julie is an amazing teacher. Again, she's a scientist who does her research and she pulls it all together for you. She's a beautiful guide for you to tap into your own evolution and your own mastery with these beautiful harmonics and this ninth wave, this holographic ninth wave of evolution. Thank you, Julie, for offering this course.
Thank you, Loren. As I said, I'm really excited about doing it because there's new information. So it's actually a new version of the course. Yeah. And if you can't attend live, the recordings will be provided. But it's very on topic and on point for this moment in time. And I can't stress enough, that we've
12
never,
hours.
yeah, at
Mhm.
least,
At least
we've
12
never
hours.
been through a time like this where we are actually moving through a living evolution.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even imagine everything that's going to transpire from this, but the beauty of this is that with the alignment with the wave, we open up to new solutions that have not presented before, and more of those are going to reveal themselves as we go along, for each one of us personally, because it's all going to be different.
Yes. And we each have unique gifts to share from all
Absolutely.
of our lifetimes on Earth, but also galactic timelines. And that's who we're becoming. And that's why this course with Julie will help you remember all of it and give you that integration period in between. It really is I find that I love the 6. I love how you're doing it in 6. I've done that as well. And
Yeah.
that 6 weeks, it's so interesting how you can look at your life before the start of the 6 weeks and look at it after, and it's totally different. We will not be the same people when we're done with these 6 weeks. And
No.
that's transformation and that's alchemy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yes. So it is. It's an alchemical process, as part and parcel of the journey. And so we're alchemizing not only for ourselves and continuing the shift, we're alchemizing for uh, the rest of humanity as well, to put it in a grand perspective. Yeah, but it's so interesting for me, Loren. I actually mentioned this in a newsletter earlier, how many people I have heard this year stating that they really feel that they were meant for these times, that this is what they
Absolutely.
were born for.
I get
They
goosebumps on that.
do, yeah, that
Raise your
this is,
hand if that's you. Everyone should have their hand raised. And so it is a mission of love. Let's keep
it is,
that very
it
clear.
is,
And no matter how it all dismantles or collapses or crumbles, our eye is on the prize of the
yeah,
solutions. And so that's why we love the work that you do, the alchemy that you do, because we need to purify. Once that purification comes, that higher self connection is so tuned in and zapped in that the
yes,
information flows. Those are the new solutions, the new earth solutions. So I thank
yes,
everyone for showing up on the planet right here, right now, and for waking
absolutely,
up right here, right now.
yeah.
And and in a salute to you, if Julie can help you on your way, on your path, please check out her course. That course is available on the special offer button on this webpage or in the description box of whatever platform you're viewing this podcast. And I want to say this is a QCTV episode where we have, with your purchase of Julie's special offer, you can get into our Zoom after party. We stay on Zoom. Julie takes your questions. We laugh, we share, and that's our New Earth community. And we invite you to check that out. So thank you, everyone. All right. Julie, as we close our circle today, is there anything that you'd like to share for inspiration for holding that new earth vision?
Okay. So what I have is, you guys might be familiar with Crystal Tone's crystal bowls. So what I have is actually a diamond bowl, and she's traveled everywhere with me. So it's literally made of crushed diamonds. It's not just quartz, it's crushed diamonds and quartz together. So it holds the resonance of diamond. So and it was really just interesting because I hadn't actually thought about it, but right before I came on air, I was thinking, oh, I hope I have an extra 2 minutes because I really feel I need to take the bowl out. I would love to just play these frequencies. I'd love people to just close their eyes for a moment and just connect in with the essence of who they are, their diamond self that is experienced through the heart, because the diamond sacred octahedron stimulates the expansion of the heart, which is where that helps us to stay in alignment with the ninth wave, the highest wave of unification. So I'd like you to just close your eyes for a moment and just let the sound ripple through you. That's all you need to do. Can you hear it okay with the microphone? Just let the
Yes.
sound resonate the cells in your body, infusing them with light. Beautiful sparks of diamond light, opening them up. And allowing the ninth wave with all of its information to move through your own genetics, your cells, your body. It's like your body becomes porous to the advanced frequencies of the ninth wave. And just once more. And if I could just say after that, also just never give up, one foot in front of the other, no matter what you do, by very virtue of the fact that you are alive upon this planet, is an indication and an honoring of the love and the truth of who you are. You contribute to the creation of New Earth just by being alive and here, listening to this right now. Don't give up. You are loved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Julie Umpleby, for this quantum conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Lorraine. It's lovely to be with you in the audience.
Yes, thank you. All right, everyone. Now it is time to dance our way to the cosmic heart.